So I've seen a lot of taxpayers lose their case just because they couldn't prove that they mailed something on time. And the crazy thing is, the IRS actually has a rule that you can protect yourself with. It's called the mailbox rule, and it's covered under Section 7502. If you understand how it works, you can literally save your case by proving that you filed it or you mailed it on time. So I'm going to walk you through what the mailbox rule really is, how Section 7502 works, and what you can do to protect yourself if you ever need to prove that you mailed something on time. So when the IRS sends you a notice of deficiency, you've got 90 days to file your petition with the U.S. Tax Court. 150 days if you're overseas, but that deadline doesn't really matter if things like life happen. So you mail it on time and it's postmarked, but the postmark gets smeared or the envelope gets delayed or destroyed. And then the mailbox rule basically says that if you mailed it before the deadline, it's treated as filed on time, as long as you can prove it. But the proof part is where most people get tripped up. The IRS doesn't take your word for it, and the tax court judges can't either. They want documentation. So if you ever send something to the IRS or the tax court, the key question is, can you show exactly when it was mailed and what service you used? Because Section 7502 of the Internal Revenue Code is called the timely mailing equals timely filing rule. And it says that if it's properly mailed before the deadline with an official U.S. postmark, that postmark acts as your timestamp. So if you use regular mail and the postmark shows a date on or before the deadline, you could be good. But if the postmark is missing or unreadable, you lose your best evidence. And if you use a private carrier like FedEx or UPS, only certain services are designated. Like, for example, if you used FedEx Ground instead of FedEx Priority Overnight, you're going to save some money, but the court will rule that your petition was filed late if you shipped it on the deadline. Now, that's happened to me in a real case. The safest choice, certified mail with a receipt or qualified delivery service like FedEx Overnight. So I went to UPS to mail something and it was 7 o'clock, but I made sure that they stamped it the date they received it. Well, that's the date the IRS and the tax court is going to take as timely filed. So even if they didn't receive the petition a few days later, that postmark proves that I sent it on time. Now imagine the opposite. You dropped it into the mailbox the night before the deadline, but the postmark ends up being the next day. That means the IRS considers it late. And once that 90-day period is done, there's nothing even the U.S. tax court judge can do about it. Now, there's a Supreme Court case out there that says that deadlines are jurisdictional, which means the U.S. tax court doesn't have the power to extend or make any exceptions, even for a good reason. Another case made a small exception in a collection due process cases, but not for deficiency petitions, and 95% of the petition have to do with deficiencies. So your evidence is really important, and the court's not going to take it into consideration unless you file it on time. So tip number 1, rely on the common law mailbox rule. The old rule says that if you can prove you mailed something even without a postmark, it's presumed delivered. But the tax court doesn't recognize that anymore. You need proof under Section 7502. Number 2, the second tip I'd say, using the wrong private delivery service, incorrect. Not only every FedEx or not every UPS service qualifies. There are ones specifically approved by the IRS. And if you pick the wrong one, it's treated as if you didn't mail it at all. Third tip, keep your receipt and keep tracking. I've had cases where we've mailed something, certified mail, but they lost it. So we had that receipt and we were able to show that we mailed it on time. And if you're using the IRS or you're dealing with the tax court, follow these simple steps every time you send something important. So first, use certified mail or an IRS-approved private delivery service. Step 2, keep your mailing receipt as tracking confirmation. Step 3, write your docket number or anything else on the tax court with the envelope. Now, it's not about paranoia. It's about being able to prove that you followed the rules. And if you ever have to testify about it, your documentation speaks for you. Judges respect taxpayers who come in prepared with organized proof. It's the difference between saying, I think I mailed it, to here's the certified receipt, here's the postmark 2 days before the deadline, and so on. So if you've got an IRS notice and you're worried about the timing, don't leave it to chance. Visit Best Tax Pro and download my free timely filing checklist. It shows you exactly how to document, mail, and track your petition the most affordable way. United States Postal Service. So when it comes to dealing with the IRS or the tax court, remember, a day early is better than a day late. My name is Josh Wieckowski, United States Tax Court practitioner. I hope this has been helpful.